I slammed my fork and knife down so hard that everyone at the table froze instantly. My father was mid-sentence, his usual Sunday dinner monologue about how brilliant Brit was, how she had such a head for business, how she was so independent and successful, not like some people who just lean on others. His eyes cut to me when he said that last part, that familiar look of dismissal I had worn like a second skin my entire life. I was done. I looked directly at my father, Robert Vance, the man who had never once told me he was proud of me, and said in a voice so calm it surprised even myself, "So I will stop sending the money every month." The room went silent. My father paled. My mother Eleanor dropped the serving spoon she was holding, and it clattered onto the hardwood floor. Brit, my younger sister, looked up from her phone for the first time all evening, her eyes wide with something that looked like panic. "Dad, what money?" my father stammered, his confident demeanor cracking like old paint. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick folder of printed bank statements, transaction receipts, and text message screenshots. I tossed it onto the table between the serving dishes. "The $7,000 I have been transferring into Brit's account every single month for the past 3 years to pay the mortgage on this house." I paused, letting that sink in. Here is the proof. Before we continue, if you are finding this story compelling, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me what you think happens next. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more stories like this one. Now let me take you back to where this all began. Growing up in the Vance household, I was always the quiet one, the one who did not shine quite as brightly as my sister. Brit was 3 years younger than me, but from the moment she could walk and talk, she became the center of my parents' universe. She had this effortless charisma, this way of commanding attention that I never possessed. I was the responsible one, the one who got good grades, helped with chores without being asked, and never caused trouble. But responsibility does not sparkle the way charisma does. My father owned a small construction business, and my mother was a homemaker who poured all her frustrated ambitions into her daughters. Except she mostly poured them into Brit. When Brit made the cheerleading squad, my parents threw a party. When I got accepted into a prestigious architecture program with a partial scholarship, my father grunted and asked how we were going to pay for the rest of it. I worked 3 jobs through college. Brit's college tuition was paid in full by our parents, who took out a second mortgage to do it. She dropped out after 2 years to pursue influencer marketing. My father called it entrepreneurial spirit. I became an architect, working my way up through sheer determination and countless sleepless nights. I found satisfaction in creating something tangible, something that would outlast me. Buildings do not play favorites. They stand or fall based on the integrity of their foundation, not on whether they are charming enough. By the time I was 32, I had a solid career, a modest but comfortable apartment, and a reputation for being reliable. I was not flashy, but I was good at what I did. Brit, on the other hand, seemed to float through life on a cloud of promises and potential. She was always about to launch something big, always on the verge of a breakthrough. She drove a leased Mercedes, wore designer clothes, and posted pictures from expensive restaurants and exotic vacations. My parents ate it up. "Look at what our Brit is accomplishing," my father would say, scrolling through her Instagram feed. "She has really made something of herself." The implication was always clear. "Unlike you, Alex, unlike you." 3 years ago, the housing market took a downturn and my father's construction business suffered. He had leveraged everything on the assumption that the boom would continue forever. When contracts dried up and clients disappeared, my parents suddenly found themselves underwater on their mortgage. The house they had lived in for 30 years, the house I had grown up in, was at risk of foreclosure. My mother called me one evening, her voice shaking with tears she was trying to hide. "We are in trouble, sweetheart. Your father does not know I am calling you. He is so ashamed. We might lose the house." I immediately offered to help. "How much do you need, Mom? We can figure this out." But when I brought it up to my father directly the next day, he exploded. "I do not need charity from you, Alex," he shouted, his face red with anger and humiliation. "Especially not from someone who has never understood what it takes to run a real business. You just sit in your little office drawing pictures." His words stung, but I was used to that particular poison. What broke my heart was my mother's face as she stood behind him, silently pleading with me not to push. Later that week, she came to my apartment alone. "Your father's pride will not let him accept help from you," she said, quietly wringing her hands. "He sees it as admitting he failed. But Alex, we are going to lose everything. I have been skipping meals. I have been selling my jewelry. I do not know what else to do." That is when she proposed the arrangement. "Could you send the mortgage payment to Brit instead? She could give it to us in cash or check, and your father would not have to know it came from you. He would accept it from Brit. He thinks she is doing so well financially." I stared at my mother, trying to process what she was asking me to do. You want me to send $7,000 a month to Brit so she can pretend it is from her? My mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. Please, Alex. It is the only way. Your father will never agree otherwise, and I cannot watch him lose the one thing he has left of his dignity. So I agreed. I loved my parents despite everything. I could not stand by and watch them lose their home. I called Brit and explained the situation. She was surprisingly agreeable. Of course I will help, she said, her voice warm and sympathetic. This makes it easier anyway. Mom will not have to feel awkward with Dad. You send the money to me and I will make sure they get it. We will keep it between us. I set up the automatic transfer. $7,000 like clockwork on the first of every month. Brit would text me confirmation that she received it, usually just a thumbs up emoji or a quick got it thanks sis. For the first few months, everything seemed fine. My parents stayed in their house. The foreclosure notices stopped coming. My mother seemed less stressed, though she never brought it up directly with me again. My father continued his Sunday dinners where he praised Brit and tolerated my presence. I told myself it was worth it. Family was worth the sacrifice, even if no one acknowledged it. But then I started noticing things. Small things at first. Brit got a new car, not a lease this time, but a brand new Mercedes that she claimed was a gift from a wealthy friend. Her Instagram feed exploded with luxury vacations to Cabo, the Maldives, Paris. Her apartment building upgraded from modest to upscale high-rise with a doorman. When I asked her about it during one of our rare phone calls, she laughed it off. I have been making some great investments, she said breezily. Things are really coming together for me, Alex. You should be happy for me. I was happy for her, or at least I tried to be, but something gnawed at me. When I visited my parents' house, I noticed the paint peeling on the exterior walls, the gutters sagging the kitchen appliances that should have been replaced years ago. The furniture was the same worn pieces from my childhood, the carpet was threadbare in spots. During one visit, I pulled my mother aside in the kitchen and asked her gently, Mom, how are things really going? Has Brit been helping? My mother avoided my eyes, focusing intently on washing a dish that was already clean. Oh yes, sweetheart. Brit is handling everything. She says these things take time. The market is complicated. Do not worry about us. But her hands shook slightly as she scrubbed, and I saw the stack of past-due utility bills tucked under a magnet on the refrigerator. I called Brit that night. Hey, I have been noticing that Mom and Dad's house needs some work. Are you sure the mortgage payments are getting to them on time? There was a pause on the other end of the line, just a beat too long. Of course they are, Alex. What are you implying? I am managing their finances. Some months I give them cash, sometimes I pay the mortgage company directly. It is all handled. Do not micromanage me. I should have pushed harder. I should have demanded proof. But some part of me still wanted to believe in the fairy tale my parents had built around Brit. Some part of me still wanted to believe that my sister would not betray the family that had given her everything. So I let it go. I kept sending the money and I kept my questions to myself. The warning signs multiplied. Brit started posting pictures with a new man, someone named Marcus Thorne. He was handsome in that practiced way, with styled hair and expensive watches, always photographed in front of luxury cars or holding champagne flutes at rooftop bars. My business partner Brit captioned the photos. We are launching something incredible together. Stay tuned. My mother mentioned him once during a phone call. Brit has a new friend, she said, and I could hear the forced brightness in her voice. He seems very successful. Your father is impressed. Maybe he will be good for her. But underneath the words I detected something else. Worry, maybe. Or doubt. The breaking point came on a cold Sunday in January, 3 years and 2 months after I started sending the money. It was the usual dinner, the usual cast of characters arranged around the dining room table like actors who had forgotten they were performing a tragedy instead of a comedy. My father carved the roast, my mother fussed over side dishes, Brit scrolled through her phone with one hand while picking at her food with the other. I sat there as I always did, the silent observer of my own family's dysfunction. I had come prepared that day. For weeks I had been gathering evidence driven by a suspicion I could no longer ignore. I had requested detailed records from my bank. I had screenshots of every text message exchange with Brit. I had even driven past my parents' house and photographed the foreclosure notice that had been posted on their door 3 days earlier, the one they were too ashamed to tell me about. I had contacted the mortgage company directly, claiming to be helping my parents with their finances, and discovered that not a single payment had been made in over 7 months. The house was scheduled for auction in 6 weeks. When my father started his usual speech about Brit's brilliance, something inside me snapped. It was not dramatic or explosive. It was quiet and cold and final, like a door closing. I set down my utensils with that sharp clang, and I spoke the words that would change everything. So I will stop sending the money every month. After my father asked what money after I threw the folder onto the table, the silence stretched like a physical thing. My mother looked like she might faint. My father opened the folder with shaking hands and began flipping through the pages. Bank transfers. $7,000. Month after month after month. All sent to Britt's account. His face cycled through confusion, shock, and then a rage I had never seen before. "Britt," my mother whispered, her voice barely audible. "Is this true, honey?" Britt's face had gone pale, but she rallied quickly. She always did. She had that survivor's instinct, that ability to twist reality to fit her narrative. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice sharp with indignation. "Alex is exaggerating. I might have been late on a few payments, but I have been managing things. This is just her trying to make me look bad because she is jealous." I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the smart TV in the living room, something I had set up earlier when no one was paying attention, and displayed my bank records on the large screen. Every transaction was there, crystal clear. $7,000 transferred to Britt Vance first of every month for 38 consecutive months. "That is $266,000, I said quietly. Every single transfer, every single confirmation text from Britt that she received it. My father stared at the screen, then at Britt. His voice came out strangled. "We have not seen a penny of this money. The bank is foreclosing on our house in 6 weeks. Where did it go?" Britt opened her mouth, closed, it opened it again. She looked like a fish drowning in air. "You do not understand," she finally said, her voice rising. "I made investments. Marcus and I, we have been building something. It is going to pay off huge, but these things take time. The money went into our startup. It is called Artisan Connect, and it is going to be revolutionary, connecting local craftspeople with customers nationally. But we needed capital. I was going to surprise you when it launched. I was going to pay back everything and more." My father stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. "You stole from your own family," he said, his voice shaking with fury. "You let your mother and me think we were losing our minds, that we were failing while you were living high on your sister's money." "It was not stealing," Britt shouted back. "It was investing in our future, all of our futures. Alex does not understand business. She plays it safe her whole life, never takes risks. I was trying to build something real." I felt strangely calm, almost detached. Building something real with stolen money does not count, Britt. And who is Marcus, really? What kind of business partner encourages you to embezzle from your own family? "He is not my family's business partner," Britt snapped. "He is mine. And he believes in me, which is more than any of you have ever done." My mother was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. My father looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. The man who had always been so certain, so confident in his judgment, looked utterly lost. I gathered my things. "Since Britt has decided this is all an investment, then it is her responsibility now," I said. "I am done. The mortgage is her problem. The house is her problem. All of it." I looked at my father. "You made it very clear over the years that you did not need my help, that you did not respect what I do or who I am. I gave it anyway because I loved you. But I will not be invisible anymore while you worship someone who does not even have the decency to be honest with you." I walked out that night and I did not look back. I drove to my apartment, sat on my couch in the dark, and felt absolutely nothing. The numbness was almost peaceful. My phone buzzed with texts. My mother begging me to come back to talk, to fix this. My father demanding I return immediately. Britt calling me horrible names, accusing me of destroying the family out of spite. I blocked Britt's number. I did not respond to my parents. The next morning when I woke up and checked my email, there was a message from my mother sent at 4 in the morning. "Alex, Britt is gone. She left a note saying we are overreacting and she will fix everything, but her car is gone. Please, we need you. Your father is beside himself. I need to know where all this money went. I need to understand what happened." I forwarded her the bank statements and every piece of information I had compiled. I also gave her the name of a lawyer I knew who specialized in financial fraud. Then I got ready for work. I had my own life to live, and I had spent too many years putting it on hold for a family that had never appreciated it. Over the next week, the story unfolded like a nightmare. My parents discovered that Britt had not just been spending the money on herself, though that was part of it. The majority had gone to Marcus Thorne and his supposed business venture. But when they tried to contact Marcus, he was conveniently unreachable. When they looked into Artisan Connect, they found a bare-bones website that had not been updated in months and no actual business registration. It was a scam, plain and simple, and Britt had either been a willing participant or a gullible victim. Knowing my sister, it was probably somewhere in between. I hired a private investigator, a man named Detective Miller, who came highly recommended. I am not looking for revenge, I told him in his modest office downtown. I just need the truth. My family deserves to know who they are really dealing with. Miller was in his 50s, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, with the kind of face that had seen too much but still cared enough to keep looking. He took the case. What he found was worse than I imagined. Marcus Thorne was not even his real name. He was Marcus Thornburg, a con artist with a history of targeting vulnerable women, particularly those with access to family money. He had been married twice before both marriages ending in restraining orders and financial settlements. He had a child he was behind on child support for, and there was a warrant out for his arrest in another state for fraud. He was a professional predator, and Britt had walked right into his trap. But here's the thing Miller told me, leaning back in his chair and studying me carefully. Your sister was not just a victim. The money trail shows she knew some of what was happening. She was withdrawing cash, making payments to luxury retailers, funding her lifestyle. She might have believed in Marcus's promises, but she also enjoyed spending your money while pretending to be the family hero. I felt sick. Part of me had hoped Britt was innocent, that she had been manipulated and lied to, but the evidence suggested she had been an active participant in her own moral corruption. She had chosen designer bags over my parents' security. She had chosen Instagram posts over integrity. 2 weeks after Britt disappeared, she showed up. Not at my parents' house, but at mine. I heard the buzzer and saw her face on the video intercom, mascara-streaked hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing sweatpants instead of her usual designer outfits. Alex, please, she said into the camera. I need to talk to you. Marcus is not answering my calls. I do not know what to do. Please. I did not buzz her in. Instead, I went downstairs and met her in the lobby of my building, making sure the doorman was nearby. We sat in the stiff chairs near the mailboxes, an absurd setting for a conversation that was about to tear what remained of our relationship apart. You stole from me, I said simply. You stole from our parents. And you lied about it for 3 years. What do you possibly think we need to talk about? Britt's face crumpled. I know, she whispered. I know I messed up. But Alex, I really thought Marcus and I were building something real. He showed me business plans, projections, investor interest. It all seemed so legitimate. And yes, okay, I spent some of the money on myself, but I was going to pay it all back. I really was. You have to believe me. I did not have to believe her, and I told her so. The money is gone, Britt. Mom and Dad are losing their house in a month. You drove a Mercedes while they skipped meals. You vacationed in the Maldives while their electricity got turned off. I do not care if you believed Marcus's lies. You lied to me every single month when you texted me that you got the money. You knew exactly what you were doing. Britt reached for my hand and I pulled away. Where is Marcus now? I asked. She shook her head miserably. I do not know. He stopped answering 3 days ago. His apartment is empty. I think he is gone. I think he took everything and left. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I loved him, Alex. I really loved him, and he just used me. I felt a flicker of sympathy, but it was buried under too much anger and betrayal. Love does not justify theft, Britt. And love definitely does not justify what you did to our family. I stood up. I have hired a lawyer and a private investigator. If you want any hope of this not ending with criminal charges, you need to cooperate fully. You need to give them every piece of information you have about Marcus and where the money went. And you need to face Mom and Dad and tell them the truth. All of it. She looked terrified. They will hate me. Dad will never forgive me. Maybe that is what you deserve, I said and walked away. But I was not done yet. While Britt was spiraling, I was building a case. Detective Miller found Marcus's real identity and tracked him to a rental property in the suburbs, a modest townhouse that was a far cry from the luxury lifestyle he portrayed online. We also found something else. Marcus had a girlfriend, someone he had been with the entire time he was with Britt, and this girlfriend had a 6-year-old daughter that Marcus had fathered and abandoned. The girlfriend, Sarah, had been trying to get child support for years with no success. Marcus was a ghost moving from scam to scam, woman to woman, leaving devastation in his wake. I contacted Sarah. We met at a coffee shop, 2 women connected by the destruction one man had caused. She was younger than me, tired, looking with a weariness that came from raising a child alone while fighting a system that did not care. When I told her what Marcus had done to my family, she was not surprised. That is what he does, she said flatly. He finds women who want to believe in something and he sells them dreams. By the time they wake up, he is gone. I showed her the evidence Miller had gathered. I showed her the money trail, the business records, everything. Sarah listened quietly, then pulled out her own folder. This is 3 years of missed child support payments, she said. This is a court order he has ignored. This is every lie he told me when I asked him for help buying our daughter's school supplies. If you are building a case against him, I want in. Together, we went to the police. We filed reports for fraud, theft, child support evasion, and a dozen other charges. The detective assigned to the case was skeptical at first. This kind of financial crime is hard to prosecute, but when he saw the mountain of evidence we had compiled, his attitude changed. This is solid work, he said, flipping through the documents. If we can find him, we can make charges stick. Finding Marcus turned out to be easier than expected. He had gotten cocky, thinking he had gotten away clean. He had rented a new apartment downtown under his real name, probably planning his next scheme. When the police showed up at my parents' house 3 days later with Marcus in handcuffs, I was there. I had come to talk to my parents to try to begin rebuilding some kind of relationship, however fragile. Marcus looked surprised to see me. That was probably the first genuine emotion I had ever seen on his face. You, he said, his smooth facade finally cracking. You could not just let it go, could you? You had to play detective. You had to ruin everything. I stepped toward him, and one of the officers moved to intervene, but I held up my hand. I am not going to touch him, I said. I just want him to hear this. I looked Marcus in the eye. You are not a businessman. You are not an entrepreneur. You are a thief who preys on people who want to believe in something better. And now you are going to face consequences for the first time in your miserable life. Marcus sneered. Your sister wanted to believe. She was desperate for someone to see her as special. That is not my fault. You are right, I said calmly. She did want to believe. And she made terrible choices because of it. But you knew what you were doing. You knew she was stealing from her family and you encouraged it. You manipulated her and you used her and you are going to pay for it. The officers led him away. Britt, who had been hiding in her old bedroom upstairs, came down slowly. She looked at me, then at our father, then at the floor. I am sorry, she whispered. I am so sorry. My father did not respond. He looked like a man who had aged decades overnight. My mother was crying again, her default state these days. The legal process was grueling. Marcus was formally charged with fraud, theft, and child support evasion. The prosecutor wanted Britt to testify to detail how Marcus had manipulated her and how the money had been used. Britt was terrified. I cannot face him again, she told me during one of our awkward phone calls. I cannot sit in a courtroom and relive all of this. You have to, I told her. Not for him. Not even for yourself. For all the other women he will do this to if he walks away from this. For Sarah and her daughter. For our parents, you have to do the right thing even if it is 3 years too late. The trial took place in late spring, 4 months after that terrible Sunday dinner. I sat in the courtroom with my mother on one side and Sarah on the other. My father refused to come, still too angry and ashamed to face the public spectacle of his family's dysfunction. Britt took the stand wearing a simple dress, no makeup, her hair pulled back. She looked small and young and scared. The prosecutor walked her through the timeline, the transfers, the promises Marcus made the way. He had convinced her that they were building something revolutionary together. But the defense attorney was brutal. Is it not true, he asked, that you spent significant amounts of this money on personal luxuries? That you drove an expensive car, wore designer clothes, traveled internationally, all while your parents faced foreclosure? Britt's voice shook as she answered. Yes, but Marcus said those things were necessary for the business. We needed to look successful to attract investors. He said it was all part of the plan. The attorney held up bank statements. These charges are for a luxury spa, Miss Vance. This one is for a 5-star hotel in Paris. How exactly did a spa day help your business? Britt had no answer. She just cried, and I hated that I felt nothing watching her break down. Whatever love I had for my sister had been buried under 3 years of lies and betrayal. Marcus took the stand in his own defense, a mistake his lawyer probably advised against. He was smooth and confident, claiming that he had genuinely believed in the business, that he had made mistakes, but had no criminal intent, that Britt had been a willing partner in all decisions. When asked about the child support, he claimed he had been trying to pay but had fallen on hard times. When asked about the other women he had scammed, he claimed they were lying, that they were just bitter ex-girlfriends trying to ruin him. The prosecutor destroyed him on cross-examination. She brought up his previous convictions, his pattern of behavior, the trail of financial destruction he had left across 3 states. She showed the jury photos of Sarah's daughter, a smiling 6-year-old who deserved a father who cared. She read excerpts from text messages between Marcus and Britt messages where he praised her for securing more money from her family, where he talked about how easy it was to manipulate her parents through her. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, Marcus was found guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 3 years in prison with 18 months without possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent when the sentence was read. No applause, no gasps, just the heavy weight of justice finally being served. My father, who had shown up for the sentencing at my mother's insistence, reached under the table and squeezed my hand. It was the first time he had initiated physical contact with me in years. My mother cried quietly. Britt exhaled a breath that seemed to carry 3 years of tension out of her body. Outside the courthouse, Sarah hugged me. "Thank you," she said simply. "My daughter will finally get the support she needs. I hope your family can heal." "I hope so too," I told her, but I was not sure I believed it. The healing process was slow and painful. Britt moved back home not because she wanted to, but because she had nowhere else to go. She got a job as an office assistant at a local insurance company, something humble and honest that paid barely enough to cover gas and groceries. Every paycheck she gave our parents half to help with bills. It would take her years to pay back even a fraction of what she had stolen, but at least she was trying. My father struggled the most with what had happened. His pride, the same pride that had prevented him from accepting my help in the first place, had been shattered completely. He stopped talking about Britt's accomplishments, stopped posting on social media, stopped pretending our family was anything other than broken. One evening, about a month after the trial, he called me. I answered warily, still not sure where we stood. "Alex," he said, and his voice was thick with emotion. "I was wrong about you. I have been wrong about you your whole life. I do not know if you can forgive me, but I need you to know that I see you now. I see what you did for us, how you sacrificed, and I am sorry I could not see it before." I sat in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, and felt tears stream down my face for the first time since this whole nightmare began. "Thank you," I whispered. "That is all I ever wanted, Dad. For you to see me." We cried together over the phone, 2 people who had spent decades misunderstanding each other, finally finding a fragile thread of connection. My relationship with Britt was more complicated. There was too much betrayal, too much hurt for us to simply move past it. But slowly, over months, we began to rebuild something. Not sisterly love, not yet, but maybe mutual respect. Maybe acknowledgement of our shared trauma. One afternoon, she came to my apartment carrying a small envelope. I almost did not let her in, but something in her face made me pause. She handed me the envelope without saying anything. Inside was an old photograph, the 2 of us at the county fair, when we were kids, maybe 7 and 4 years old. We were holding cotton candy, our faces sticky with sugar, grinning at the camera with the kind of uncomplicated joy that only children possess. On the back, in Britt's handwriting, she had written, "Thank you for not giving up on me even when I deserved it." I looked at the photo for a long time at those 2 little girls who had no idea how complicated their lives would become. I did not say anything profound. I just hugged Britt and she hugged me back, and we both cried. It was not forgiveness, not entirely, but it was a start. By summer, the house was no longer in danger of foreclosure. I had worked with a financial advisor to restructure my parents' debts, had helped them set up a realistic budget, and had even put them in touch with a reverse mortgage counselor to explore their options. I did not give them more money, that well had run dry, but I gave them something more valuable. My expertise, my time, my willingness to help them navigate a system that had nearly destroyed them. My mother started a small garden in the backyard, something she had always wanted to do but never had the time for. My father began doing repairs on the house, small projects that gave him a sense of purpose. Britt worked her modest job and came home tired, but with a clarity in her eyes that had not been there before. As for me, I received a job offer from a prestigious architecture firm in Seattle. It was a senior position, a chance to work on major projects, a fresh start in a city where no one knew my family's story. I agonized over the decision for weeks. Part of me felt obligated to stay, to keep helping, to make sure my family did not fall apart again. But another part of me, the part that had been silent for too long, knew I needed to choose myself for once. The morning I left for Seattle, my entire family came out to see me off. It was awkward and emotional hugs that lasted too long and words that did not quite capture what we all felt. Britt handed me another envelope. Inside was a different photo, one I had not seen before. We were teenagers in this one, sitting on the porch, steps my arm around her shoulders, both of us squinting into the Sunday. On the back she had written, "Sometimes you have to lose everything to see what is worth keeping." I drove away from that house, watching it shrink in my rearview mirror until it was just a speck. The building looked smaller than I remembered, less imposing, less important. It was just a house after all, brick and wood and memories, some good and many painful. Family does not have to break you, I realized, but only if you refuse to let it. Seattle was everything I hoped it would be. The architecture firm was challenging and rewarding. My colleagues respected my work, and I found an apartment with a view of the water that made me feel like I could finally breathe. I started therapy, something I should have done years ago, and began unpacking decades of resentment and pain. I learned that loving your family does not mean sacrificing yourself on the altar of their dysfunction. I learned that you can forgive people without trusting them. I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Britt and I text now, not often, but regularly. Short updates about her job, my projects, our parents' health. There is still distance between us, probably always will be, but it is not the cold void it once was. My father calls every Sunday evening, a ritual he started without me asking. He tells me about the repairs he is making on the house, asks about my work, and every conversation ends with, "I am proud of you, Alex." I know I do not say it enough. My mother sends care packages filled with homemade cookies and newspaper clippings about Seattle that she thinks I will find interesting. I date now, something I never had time or energy for when I was supporting my family in secret. I have friends here who know nothing about my past except what I choose to share. I have built a life that is entirely mine, not defined by anyone else's expectations or judgments. And some days when the sun hits the water just right and I am walking home from a successful project presentation, I feel something I have not felt in years. Happy. Actually, genuinely happy. The scars are still there. I am more cautious with money than I probably need to be, tracking every expense, unable to splurge even when I can afford it. I still have moments where I question my worth, where that old voice in my head whispers that I am not good enough, not special enough, not deserving of the life I have built. But those moments are becoming fewer and farther between. Therapy helps, distance helps, time helps. A year after I moved to Seattle, I was asked to speak at a conference about sustainable architecture. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of professionals who had come to hear what I had to say, I felt a shift inside me. These people did not know about Britt or Marcus or the stolen money. They knew me for my work, for my ideas, for the buildings I had designed that would stand long after all of us were gone. I was not the quiet daughter or the overlooked sister or the family's secret savior. I was just Alex Vance, architect, and that was enough. After my presentation, a young woman approached me during the networking session. She could not have been more than 25, nervous and eager. "Miss Vance," she said, "I just wanted to tell you that your work inspired me to go into architecture. I come from a family that did not understand why I wanted to build things instead of becoming a doctor or lawyer like they wanted. Your story about designing the community center in Tacoma, how you fought to keep it affordable and accessible, it made me realize that creating something meaningful is worth the struggle." I looked at this young woman, at her hopeful face, and I saw myself a decade ago. I thought about all the times my father had dismissed my work as just drawing pictures, all the times I had questioned whether what I did mattered. "Thank you," I told her, "and I want you to know something. The people who matter will see your value eventually, and if they do not, you build your life anyway. You build it strong and true, and you do not let anyone take that from you." She nodded, eyes shining with emotion, and I realized I was not just telling her, I was reminding myself. 2 years after leaving, I went back home for Thanksgiving. It was the first major holiday I had agreed to spend with my family since the trial. I was nervous driving up to the house, my stomach in knots, half expecting to walk back into the same dysfunction that had defined my childhood. But when I pulled into the driveway, I noticed changes. The exterior had been repainted a warm cream color instead of the dingy beige it had been. The gutters were new. The lawn was maintained. Someone had planted flowers along the walkway. My mother opened the door before I even knocked, pulling me into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and vanilla, like home was supposed to smell. "Oh, Alex, I have missed you so much," she said, holding me at arm's length to look at me. "You look wonderful, sweetheart. Seattle agrees with you." My father appeared behind her, and there was a moment of awkward hesitation before he stepped forward and hugged me too. "Welcome home, kiddo," he said gruffly. Britt was in the kitchen, wearing an apron and stirring something on the stove. She looked different. Her hair was simpler, her clothes casual, no designer labels in sight. When she saw me, she smiled tentatively. "Hey sis," she said. I made your favorite green bean casserole. I know I always made fun of you for loving it, but I figured it was time to actually try. I felt a lump in my throat. Thanks, Britt. That means a lot. Dinner was not perfect. There were moments of uncomfortable silence topics. We all carefully avoided old wounds that were still too fresh to touch. But there was also laughter. My father told a story about a construction mishap from his younger days, and we all cracked up at his self-deprecating humor. My mother showed me pictures of her garden beaming with pride at the tomatoes and zucchini she had grown. Britt talked about a promotion she had received at work assistant manager, now nothing glamorous, but something she had earned through actual hard work. At one point, my father stood up and tapped his glass with a fork. I know I am not good with words, he said, his voice shaking slightly. But I want to say something. This family went through hell. We made terrible mistakes. I made terrible mistakes. He looked directly at me. Alex, I failed you as a father. I let my own insecurities and pride blind me to the incredible person you are. You saved this family not just with money, but with strength and integrity. And I am sorry it took me so long to see it. I felt tears streaming down my face, and I did not try to stop them. Thank you, Dad, I managed to say. That is all I ever needed to hear. My mother was crying too. Britt looked down at her plate, her own tears falling silently. We were a family of broken people trying to glue ourselves back together, and it was messy and imperfect, but it was real. Later that evening, Britt and I took a walk around the neighborhood, the same streets we had ridden our bikes down as kids. The air was crisp and cold, our breath visible in the November night. I need to tell you something, Britt said as we walked. I have been seeing a therapist for almost a year now. She has helped me understand why I made the choices I made, why I was so desperate for attention and validation that I let myself be manipulated. I am glad I said honestly. We all needed that. Britt nodded. I know I can never really make up for what I did. The money is gone, and even if I pay back every cent over the next 20 years, it does not erase the betrayal. But I want you to know I am trying. I am trying to be someone worthy of your forgiveness, even if I never fully get it. We walked in silence for a moment. Forgiveness is not a destination, Britt, I finally said. It is a process. Some days I am angrier than others. Some days I look at you and I still see the person who stole from me and lied to my face. But other days I see my little sister who got lost and is finding her way back. I cannot promise you complete forgiveness, but I can promise I will keep trying. Britt stopped walking and turned to face me. That is more than I deserve, she said. Thank you, Alex, for everything. For not giving up on this family even when we deserved it. I pulled her into a hug and we stood there on the sidewalk under the streetlights, two sisters with a complicated past and an uncertain future, but at least we were still standing. Before I left to return to Seattle, my mother pulled me aside. She pressed something into my hand, a small jewelry box. This was my mother's, she said. Your grandmother's engagement ring. I want you to have it, not for any particular reason, just because you should have something that represents where you come from, something to remind you that despite everything you are loved. I opened the box and saw a delicate gold ring with a small diamond, simple and beautiful. It is perfect, Mom, I whispered. I will treasure it. My mother cupped my face in her hands. You are the strongest person I know, Alex. You always have been. I am sorry I did not tell you that more often. Fly back to Seattle and keep building your beautiful buildings and your beautiful life. And know that we are here, imperfect and flawed, but we are here. The drive back to Seattle felt different this time. I was not running away. I was choosing my path. There is a difference. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Thank you for coming home. Love you. 3 words he had probably said to me fewer than a dozen times in my entire life. I pulled over at a rest stop and texted back. Love you too, Dad. In the months that followed, I threw myself into my work with renewed passion. I designed a women's shelter in downtown Seattle, pro bono work that I poured my heart into. I wanted to create a space where women who had been broken by life could find safety and begin to heal. When the project was completed and I walked through the finished building, I thought about all the women who would pass through these doors. Women like Sarah trying to raise children alone after being abandoned. Women like Britt who had made terrible choices and needed a second chance. Women like me who had given everything to people who did not appreciate it and needed to learn their own worth. The director of the shelter, a woman named Carmen who had escaped an abusive marriage and rebuilt her life from nothing, hugged me at the opening ceremony. This building will save lives, she said. You have given so many women a chance they would not have had otherwise. I thought about my own journey, about the Alex who had sat at that Sunday dinner table feeling invisible, about the Alex who had discovered $266,000 missing, about the Alex who had walked away from her family to save herself. This building is for all of us, I told Carmen. Every woman who ever had to choose herself when the world told her she was being selfish. 3 years after leaving, I met someone. His name was Daniel, a structural engineer I worked with on a project. He was kind and thoughtful, the kind of man who listened when I talked and did not try to fix me when I struggled. We took things slow, which was exactly what I needed. On our 5th date over dinner at a quiet restaurant overlooking the water, he asked me about my family. I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal, but something about his open, honest face made me want to be truthful. I told him everything. The years of being overlooked, the stolen money, the betrayal, the trial, the slow, painful process of rebuilding. I watched his face as I spoke, waiting for judgment or pity or discomfort. Instead, he reached across the table and took my hand. "That must have been incredibly painful," he said simply. "I am sorry you went through that, but I am also impressed by your strength." A lot of people would have cut their family off completely or let the bitterness consume them. The fact that you are still trying, still hoping for healing, that says a lot about who you are. I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot of tension I had been carrying for so long, I had forgotten it was there. "Thank you," I said, "for not running away after hearing all that." He smiled. "Alex, we all have complicated families and messy pasts. Yours is just a bit messier than most, but that does not change how I see you. I see someone brilliant and talented and compassionate, someone who builds beautiful things and fights for what matters. That is the person I want to get to know better." 6 months later, Daniel met my family. I was nervous about it, worried that seeing them together would somehow diminish me in his eyes. But Daniel was gracious and kind, complimenting my mother's cooking, talking construction with my father, making Britt laugh with stories from his own work disasters. At one point, my father pulled me aside. "I like him," he said. "He sees you the way we should have all along. Hold on to that one, Alex." The turning point came in the 4th year. Britt called me, her voice shaking with emotion. "Alex, I need to tell you something. I have been saving every extra dollar from my paychecks, and I just made a payment. It is not much, only $5,000, but I wanted you to be the first to know. I am going to pay you back every single cent. It is going to take me years, probably decades, but I am going to do it." I sat down, overwhelmed by the gesture. "Britt, I do not need the money back. What I needed was for you to become the person you were supposed to be. And you are doing that." "No," Britt said firmly. "You needed to know I am taking responsibility. This is not just about money. It is about accountability. It is about me proving to myself that I can be trusted again. Please let me do this." I agreed. Over the next several years, Britt sent me payments. Some months it was $200, other months $500, whatever she could spare after taking care of herself and helping our parents. Each payment came with a short note. "Thank you for believing I could change. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for being the sister I did not deserve." I kept every note in a folder, a tangible record of redemption. 5 years after I left, I was back home for Christmas. The house was decorated with lights and garland, the kind of festive warmth that had been missing from my childhood. We sat around the tree exchanging gifts, and my father handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a framed photograph of a building, one of my early designs from when I had just started my career. Underneath the photo was a plaque that read, "Designed by Alexandra Vance, architect and daughter who never gave up." I looked at my father, confused. "I had this made," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I want you to know that I see your work now. I see everything you have built, not just in Seattle, but here in this family. You are the foundation that held us together when we were falling apart. I am proud of you, Alex. I am so damn proud of you." I could not speak. I just held the frame and cried, years of pain and longing, and finally recognition pouring out of me. My mother hugged me from one side, Britt from the other, and my father wrapped his arms around all of us. We stood there, a tangled mess of imperfect people who had hurt each other and betrayed each other and somehow miraculously found a way back. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat in my old room and looked at the photograph. I thought about the girl I had been, the one who had worked 3 jobs to pay for college, who had sacrificed her own security to save her parents, who had been invisible in her own family. I thought about the woman I had become, the one who had learned that walking away is not giving up, it is survival. The one who had learned that you can love people from a distance until they learn to love you properly. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Missing you. Come home safe." Home. I smiled at the word. Home was not just Seattle anymore. It was not just this house in the suburbs. Home was wherever I chose to be, wherever I felt valued and loved and seen. I texted back, "I will, love you," and I meant it. Now, sitting here in my Seattle office with the water stretching out before me and the city I have helped shape rising around me, I think about everything that happened. The betrayal, the pain, the slow climb back to something resembling normal. I think about Marcus, hopefully still in prison, learning that actions have consequences. I think about Britt working her modest job and sending me payments and building a life based on honesty instead of lies. I think about my parents who finally learned to see both their daughters for who they truly are. And I think about myself, the woman who survived being invisible and emerged stronger on the other side. Would I go back and change things if I could? Would I prevent the theft, the lies, the betrayal? Part of me wants to say yes to erase those years of pain. But another part of me knows that I would not be who I am today without that fire. I was forged in betrayal and tempered by the choice to save myself. I learned that loving yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. I learned that you cannot save people who do not want to be saved, but you can save yourself. I learned that buildings are not the only things that need strong foundations. So here is what I want you to take away from my story. If you are in a relationship, any relationship where you feel invisible, where your sacrifices go unnoticed, where your worth is constantly questioned, you are not obligated to stay. Love and loyalty are not the same as accepting abuse or betrayal. You can leave, you can choose yourself. And yes, it will be hard. Yes, people will tell you that you are selfish or that you are giving up or that family is supposed to be forever. But forever does not mean anything if it is killing you slowly from the inside. Set your boundaries. Stand your ground. Walk away if you need to. And understand that walking away does not mean you do not love them. It means you love yourself enough to refuse to be destroyed. Some relationships can be rebuilt like mine with my family. Others cannot and should not be. Trust yourself to know the difference. And if you are the person who has betrayed someone who has taken advantage of their love and loyalty, know that redemption is possible, but it is not guaranteed. It requires actual change, not just words. It requires humility, accountability, and time. Years of it, and even then, the person you hurt may never fully trust you again. That is their right. Your job is not to demand forgiveness. Your job is to become someone worthy of it, whether you receive it or not. To everyone listening, I want you to ask yourself this question. Are you living your life for yourself or for someone else's approval? Are you building your own foundation or constantly shoring up someone else's crumbling structure? Are you seen and valued for who you truly are, or are you invisible in your own story? Your answers matter. Your truth matter. You matter. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have stayed and continued to help, or would you have walked away sooner? Have you ever had to choose yourself over someone you loved, and how did it change you? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if you see yourself in any part of what I went through, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need a reminder that we are stronger than we think, braver than we believe, and worthy of the life we dream of building. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And remember, you are the architect of your own life. Build something beautiful.